For everyone who has been asking what's taking so long to get justice for Shanquella Robinson, it looks like the wait will soon be over because more details have been released that the Cabo 6 never thought would come out. Information that is so explosive that after almost 5 months of silence, even the White House has finally made a statement about the Shanquella Robinson case.
Let me just first say our hearts go out to Ms. Robinson's family and friends. It is devastating what occurred, and certainly the tragedy is just devastating. And we've been following the news here, but because there's an FBI investigation underway, there's very little that we can say. We got to, as you know, we are very careful about criminal investigations or any investigations that are currently happening through DOJ, in this particular case, FBI. But our hearts go out again, to the families.
When you combine this with the news that Mexico has finally done what they've clearly wanted to do from the first moment they told Shanquella's family that there was no foul play, and is basically saying, get somebody else to do it, by being willing to hand jurisdiction over to the U.S., we're looking at justice being just around the corner instead of being hindered behind months or longer of delays due to extradition red tape. After almost 5 months of seeking justice for Shanquella Robinson, new details are emerging that paint an even clearer picture of how the Cabo 6 preyed on Shanquella, tried to smear her name, and were able to manipulate others in order to flee Mexico before their sins caught them out. Shanquella Robinson, a beautiful, adventurous, successful entrepreneur who was known among family and friends for being sweet, lovable, business-driven, respectful, and, according to her sister Tequila Long, didn't associate herself with drama, was stolen from this world on October 29, 2022, during a trip to Mexico with a group of 6 unscrupulous individuals who not only pretended to befriend Shanquella in order to ambush her while she was at her most vulnerable, but then proceeded to collude with others to tamper with evidence and promote a false narrative to authorities and Shanquella's family. And alongside the cry for justice has been the question of what's taking so long? As is all too often the case when it comes to actually securing justice for certain people, we have to go above and beyond the call to even get the ball moving. A point that has been demonstrated so clearly in the case of Shanquella Robinson, when after months of silence regarding any progress from Mexican authorities and U.S. officials, Sue Ann Robinson, an attorney representing the family of Shanquella, who although is no blood relation to the family, felt compelled to physically seek justice in this case by making a trip to Mexico just a few weeks ago.
Being on the ground in Mexico on a fact-finding mission was surreal. I'm an attorney. I went to law school. I know what the laws are. I know I'm a former prosecutor. I know what the Department of Justice can do if someone flees from justice. So for me, on behalf of this family, to have to physically go and seek justice on their behalf,
come on now,
was unreal. In another country, with another language.
During a time when Americans are being taken and deleted in Mexico at an alarming rate, the mother of 2 went to our U.S. consulate in Mexico, which is supposed to act as the liaison and protection for American citizens abroad. And her attempts to get assistance were dismissed and impeded to the point that she was advised that if the family needed more information, they should talk to the 6 travel mates that went to Cabo with Shanquella. The 6 people who we have actual video evidence that not only did they ambush Shanquella, but they taunted her, filmed and streamed her, and not one person intervened to stop the horrific actions that led to Shanquella's no longer being here. Then, to top it all off, they conspired to create a smear campaign that placed the blame solely on Shanquella. After receiving no assistance from the U.S. consulate, Attorney Robinson spent the rest of her week in Mexico, going to the police station, going to the Mexican Red Cross, going to the office of the doctor who attended to Shanquella, going to the villa, going to the Attorney General's office, where she was informed that not only had they completed their investigation and sent all that was necessary to Interpol and the FBI, but they allowed her to review and have a copy of those documents so that the U.S. could actually take jurisdiction in the case and bring the Cabo Six to justice themselves. Which is why, when Attorney Robinson returned to the U.S., she had even more details to present to the Justice Department, which included details from interviews that the Mexican police conducted with the concierge at the villa where Shanquella was found. Details that began to paint a picture of a sinister plot in its infancy. On the very first night that the group arrived, the concierge noticed that something was off. Shanquella was the last person to join the group for dinner and seemed not to fit in with the others, which is something that is highlighted by one of the last stories Shanquella posted to Instagram, where she was walking through the villa, calling out to those she called her friends with no response. And once she entered the room at the back of the villa where they were all congregated, the vibes in the room completely iced her out. The concierge also said that Shanquella appeared indifferent and not in sync with the atmosphere of celebration. She was out of place at the party. The next day, the concierge received a text around 1:50 p.m. from the person he identified as Dejanay Jackson, whom he had been in contact with as the main client who saw to the details of the trip. The client informed him that she thought her friend had alcohol poisoning and they needed emergency services and a translator. The concierge offered to send an English-speaking doctor, which would cost $100 along with any medicine provided. Then, around 4:25 p.m., the concierge received a text from the doctor who said that although Shanquella wasn't in serious condition, she was unconscious and needed to be hospitalized with an IV. After an ambulance arrived, the concierge was later informed by the villa administrator that Shanquella had passed. When he went to the villa to offer his condolences, he noticed a male guest who was of regular build with short hair as he was coming and going from the villa while on the phone. He also saw Dejanay making contact with this male guest as she was also entering and leaving the villa several times. When the concierge entered the villa, he observed the guest relaxed and calm, sitting in the living room area. He gave Dejanay his condolences, who then thanked him and told him that she had spoken with Shanquella's mother. Dejanay also mentioned how it happened so fast, how they had lost Shanquella in an instant from drinking too much alcohol. The concierge offered Dejanay a hug, which she accepted, but she gave him a very cold and indifferent hug. He then saw a very sad guest, a skinny girl who was in pain. The concierge then went and stayed outside the main entrance to give them privacy to grieve, but minutes later, he heard laughter coming from the villa. Later that evening, around 9:30 p.m., Dejanay contacted the concierge again to request transportation to dinner because they had not eaten at all that day because of the situation. He requested a driver for them and was informed later that evening that the driver had dropped them off at the airport hotel. The next day, a maid reported that there was no one in the villa. So the concierge reached out to Dejanay at 11 a.m. that Sunday morning, but he did not receive a response from her until Monday, October 31st, after they had already returned to the U.S. Days later, the concierge saw the video of them ambushing Shanquella on social media and realized that Dejanay had manipulated him in order to leave the country as soon as possible. From these new details, it is very clear that the Cabo Six had a plan, and aside from some enterprising civilians who have reached out to their places of employment, their lives have seemingly gone on as before, while Shanquella's family is left to wait and beg for justice. This travesty has led attorneys Sue Ann Robinson and Ben Crump to hold press conferences and release letters they've sent to U.S. officials and documents detailing the investigation in order to ask for a high level of diplomatic intervention to do whatever is necessary to bring those responsible to justice.